Welcome to the video on your final video presentation. This video I'm going to discuss the next 4 weeks of class and what you have due concerning your final video presentation. So I'll go through each week. In week 5, you're going to be required to develop 10 to 12 interview questions. Those interview questions should be geared towards gathering information for your final presentation. Your questions, again, your final video presentation, you can select several topics that we've discussed in the course, or you can choose to dive deeper into one of those topics. For example, you could talk about a company's culture and talk to your interviewee as far as the company culture, their experience, what they've learned, things like that. The thing is, when you do your questions, I'm not expecting you just to go find 10 or 12 interview questions. I'm expecting you to create them based on what you're going to be covering in your final presentation. So don't just go find 8 or 10 interview questions on leadership. Find 10 to 12 questions, or create 10 to 12 questions that will help you prepare for your final presentation. Again, your end goal is you will be creating an 8 to 10 minute final presentation. So you need to make sure you're asking enough questions to collect enough information to prepare an 8 to 10 minute presentation. Again, I would not recommend asking yes or no questions. When I'm looking at your questions, if they're yes or no, I'll reply back and tell you to change them. You need to be asking open-ended questions. And the whole reason, this is pretty straightforward, but the whole reason to do the interview questions is to make sure that you're kind of getting into the mindset of preparing for your interview and the final presentation. So this should be, week 5 should be relatively straightforward, but it really kind of should be, it gets you to start focusing on the outline of what your final presentation is going to look like. Also, my preference is for you not to interview your boss, and definitely not a relative. The goal is for you to kind of be able to reach out to maybe someone that you might not directly come in contact with, but maybe someone higher up in the organization. Again, this allows you to get exposure to people higher up in your organization. So anyway, and then on to week 6. Week 6, when you actually do the interview, what I've done is kind of outline what you need to do for your interview. I used to have students that the instructions used to have for you to transcribe them. I don't like that. A, it's extra work. B, who says you did the interview? So you need to either audio or video record the interview. And again, with COVID and with everything that's going on, feel free to just use your iPhone to record it, or you can do a video recording too. Video recording is useful. I mean, you can use audio because then you can use little clippets for your final presentation. But again, that's up to you. I'm not going to grade you on the quality of the audio or video, but a couple things that you need to keep in mind. If I can't hear you clearly, then I can't grade your interview. So make sure that you're aware that you're not interviewing someone with buses going by or trains or kids in the background. Make sure that I can hear the interview. That's important. Again, if it is difficult for me to hear your interview, I will deduct points. There is no length requirement for the interview. What I can tell you, if you have a 6-minute interview, I'm probably pretty sure you haven't gathered enough information for your final presentation. Most interviews will typically last between 15 and 30 minutes, is what a typical interview will kind of, that kind of sweet spot of, hey, you've got enough information, you've asked enough questions, you've asked enough follow-up questions. Again, not that there's a time limit, but if you do a 5 to 6 minute interview, it's probably really not, you're not really gathering enough depth for your final presentation. Okay, so going on to week 7, which is the final presentation. Final presentation, I'm going to go with the do's and don'ts. Do start with an introduction of yourself and the interviewee. You cannot assume that I know who it is or your classmates know who it is. Do an introduction like you would in any presentation. Number 2, use visual aids. My expectation is that I'm not just watching you as you talk about your interview and showing connectivity to the course. Number 3, using real life examples is great. If you ask your interviewee for an example, that's something that would be good to include in your final presentation. The goal is for you to show connectivity. The goal is for you to take what we've been talking about in the class concepts, and asking questions about those concepts and theories to your interviewee and show connectivity. Hey, we learned about this in class, leadership theory. Is that really how it works in the real world? Yes, it does, or no, it doesn't. Or sometimes there's a little bit that does, and it doesn't always work out that way. So again, your goal is to demonstrate your mastery of the topic, that you understand the topics we've been talking about, and you can show that connectivity. Also, be creative. I had a student did a great job. She was did like a broadcast, like she was in the newsroom. Turned out to be a great interview, a great final presentation. So be creative and have fun with it. It should be professional. I'm expecting to be a professional presentation, and I am expecting you to include a brief reference page at the very end. Again, the goal is to show connectivity. Where did you show connectivity? To the readings and to the course material. You have a reference page. You've probably referenced it during your presentation. That's why I require you to have a reference page. Don'ts. Do not use the interview as your presentation. These are 2 separate assignments. If you video record your interview, that is not your presentation. That's your interview. You can use small clippets, but if you're using a majority of your interview as your final presentation, that doesn't work. I've already seen the interview. I've already watched it. Even though your classmates haven't, I don't want your final presentation to be just your interview. Now, if you want to use small clippets and show connectivity, that's great. Again, I think that's smart to do that. I would encourage you to do that. But be aware when you're doing your interview, make sure you have pauses between when you're asking questions and when your interviewee is replying, because then it's easy to cut that video clip and take it into your final presentation. So another don't is don't try to throw something together at the last minute. I can tell you I've been grading, teaching higher ed for 14 years. It would be very obvious to me and your fellow classmates if you just kind of try to throw this together at the last minute. So please don't do that. The other thing is, do not just have you talking. Again, visual aids are there to enhance your presentation. I don't want it to be just like a video blog where you're sitting there talking on the screen without any visual aids, and it's just kind of like you talking. I've actually had a student do that. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a final presentation with visual aids that shows connectivity to the topics and the interview that you conducted. So you post that in week 7. Critical, you post that because that's what you will be graded on. So when this course used to run, we used to do it in week 8. You would post them, then I would watch all the videos and grade them. And I thought, this is really kind of a waste because, a majority of you are going to do an excellent job on these final presentations. And I just felt it was a waste that other people couldn't view them and appreciate the effort that you put into them. So I kind of switched things up. So for 8 week, you need to repost your final video presentation. And then for the discussion that week, you will be replying to 2 of your classmates' video presentations. So week 7, you post it. I'll grade that. Week 8, you post it again. And then your classmates, So you're going to be watching other classmates and then replying to those posts. Now, one thing different in week 8 is it says in all the other discussion boards that you need to reply to more than 2. Because you're going to be watching the videos, you only need to reply to 2 of your classmates. So that's one difference. But again, don't forget you need to post it in week 7. And then for week 8, you need to post your final presentation for your classmates to watch and then reply to. Okay, that kind of walks you through the next 4 weeks. I know that there might still be some questions. If you still have questions after you've watched this video, please shoot me an email and I will try to clarify. If it's something that I feel is worthy of posting an announcement to make sure everybody understands, then I'll post an announcement about your question. But again, feel free to reach out to me. Hopefully this short presentation has helped you get a little bit better of an understanding of what's going to happen over the next 4 weeks. So that's all I have.